Hey everybody, this is Freddy, Night of the Living podcast special episode. On the, I started to say phone, but really it's Skype. We have a three-way call going with author Robert Scott Norton. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Freddy. How are you?
I'm good, and you're on the North Shore of England, right?
Well, the northwest, so close to Liverpool.
And then we have Paul Cram, the actor who has read your latest book in the audiobook format, The Face Stealer. Paul has been on the show a couple times before, so I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with him, but Paul's a film actor, does TV. By the way, Paul, I love the TV spot you did for Nickelodeon. It was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
It's really cool. And Paul, where are you at right now?
I'm in Minneapolis. I'm back to my hometown for, the holiday season. So, yep, Minneapolis.
All right. So I'm right here in Cincinnati. So we're spread out like equidistant here, I think.
I think Robert may be a little further, but yeah.
I'm just going to pretend that I know where Cincinnati and Minneapolis are in my map of the US. I know where Las Vegas is. I know where Florida is, and it's a bit of a blur.
Just out of geekiness, do you know where the Great Lakes are? Have you heard of the Great Lakes?
I've heard of the Great Lakes. They're in the middle, aren't they? Everything that isn't Las Vegas and Florida is in the middle.
Yeah, in the middle toward the top, and I'm on one side of the Great Lakes, and Freddy's kind of on the other.
Yeah, I'm just south of the Great Lake. Like Cleveland is right on this shore of the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
Now that everybody knows geographically where they are, where all of us are speaking from, I think they're just more comfortable knowing.
I'd have to say like because I actually did look up where Robert. I looked up where you are from in England because it did give me like a sense of solace, like knowing because I looked it up on a map. I was like, I've never heard of this town before, and it helped me. So yeah, hopefully if there's any European listeners, they'll look up the Great Lakes and find that same solace. I don't know.
There's something about kind of knowing where someone is on the globe, and it makes it more real, especially when you're communicating online and over Skype and things like that. That you're a real person in a real town, and I bring that up partly because I know we were talking before the call also that you have a lot in common with like Stephen King, where when you write, you're writing either in your town or in some version of the town you live in, correct?
Yes. So I guess it's more a version of the town that I live in. So Southport is quite a quiet town. It's a reputation as a bit of a retirement town. So we would have a lot of what we call the Blue Rinse Brigade, a lot of retirement people coming here. I think that's probably unfair, but I think it made it interesting to start writing a novel and throwing conflict into that area and seeing what happened. I suppose the reputation of the town is quite a quiet retirement town, but I haven't factored that in really into the story. There are people of all ages here doing all sorts of jobs. It's just a normal town to me. But like I was saying, creating a novel is such a complex thing that I've got all these weird plot ideas, and I just wanted to take that tiny little element of world building away to make the rest of the process easier for me. And I found that grounding it in a town that I know very well helped it come alive to me.
I haven't had a chance to actually hear the entire audiobook because it's this 10-hour work, which Paul, I want to get into that with you because I can't imagine like what kind of undertaking that is for an actor. Because this was your first full-length audio novel, wasn't it?
This is one of this length. Yes, I had done several shorter pieces, but nothing of this magnitude.
And this is part of a series as well, correct?
It is.
Yes. So this is the idea that I've got a universe of connected fiction, which I call the Tombs Legacy, somewhat pompously a little bit. And I like to think of that a little bit like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So you've got this whole big world of fiction to play in. And within that, I've got different series. So The Face Stealer is part of a series called Tombs. And this is set in the now. It's quite sci-fi thriller. And I've got other series as well, which I'm going to write as part of the Tombs Legacy. And that lets me cross genres a little bit. So I've got a horror series that I'm working on. It's all part of the same universe, but it lets me focus on aspects of horror that I wouldn't want to bring into Tombs. And I've got another series called Tombs Rising, where I've actually just released the first book in that series today, called The Remnant Keeper, and that's set 100 years on in the same town, and that's dealing with some of the repercussions and the fallout of what happened in the Face Stealer. So what I'm hoping is that readers will pick up books in the series, and if they read from a different series, they'll find connections there between them, and it'll be a more rewarding experience.
Do you spend a lot of time concerning yourself with continuity and making sure that you don't violate your own canon, or is it more like a whimsical approach?
It's, I suppose, the way that I've written it, there is a central conceit which helps cross all of these genres. But when I'm writing in the series, I'm focusing very much on the development within that one series, and then finding points where I can cross over into the other ones. It's a hybrid approach, really. It means that I can write without worrying too much about continuity across them. And because the series Tombs Rising is set 100 years from the events of the Face Stealer, I've got a lot of leeway there to play with. The characters don't know the characters from the Face Stealer, but there are bigger events happening which will impact their lives.
It's really exciting. The Face Stealer, and in the excerpt that I checked out that Paul sent, it was really evocative and well written. I was totally absorbed into the actual scene. It didn't really, the clip that I heard didn't give me a bigger sense of like kind of who the characters were or the bigger plot. But for me, like that sample really told me something about the atmosphere you're building, and we'll play that clip a little bit here so the listener can hear what I'm talking about. But I kind of wanted to know more about like who is the focus of the story of the Face Stealer, this installment in the series.
So the main character, the protagonist there, is he's an IT consultant called Max Harding, and Max is living in a difficult relationship. So he's got an abusive partner. And Max is accused of murdering his mistress, and events unfurl from there. So Max has to clear his name. He has to uncover the mysteries around Tombs and work out why there are faceless assassins trying to kill him. So it's very much an everyman story dealing with bizarre events and trying to find his way through them.
It's kind of got a film noir feel to the description that you just gave me. I can kind of imagine this being almost like a take on like that Bogart style of, you're almost an anti-hero, the guy's accused of the crime he didn't commit. It's a classic theme. I love that theme. And I think that, it's something that to spin it off into something so much bigger. Because you're saying that the vehicle for telling this basic kind of noirish style story is it's set in this much bigger landscape and universe, right? It's like a small piece of a bigger puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is an element in the story which will be picked up on in all of the stories that I'm going to tell within the Tombs legacy. So I suppose when a reader comes to pick up books in the later series, they'll see what Max was dealing with at that level.
They'll get a bigger picture. I love it.
So do you work from like the macro and drill down to your characters? Like, did you have an idea of this bigger picture, and then you work from the ground up towards that bigger picture, or did you work from the inside out, like from the character's perspective, and then see how they fit into your big picture?
So if I said it was all planned from the beginning, does that make me sound really clever?
It does.
Maybe we'll go with that approach.
We should go with that approach. Yeah. It's like the J.J. Abrams and Lost, right?
So I suppose being completely honest, being an indie author, it's really important to get readers hooked into something. And as a writer myself, I'm trying to tap into things that make me excited. So I think of big, complicated stories. So things like Battlestar Galactica, Babylon 5, all these massive big arcs over stories. They're the things that I really enjoy. So when I started The Face Stealer, it was started as a standalone book. But as I started to develop that, I realized there were threads there which I could pick up very, very, very easily and turn that into turn it into a different series. That's what I've done, really. But I didn't release the Face Stealer until I had at least an idea of where these other series were going to go, to make sure that if I needed to, I could seed elements back into the Face Stealer.
I love that. That's a great approach too. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I think I even brought him up when we first started talking. But I
love Stephen King. Stephen King was my first kind of grown-up books that I read.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's for our generation, because I think we're a similar age. I think that's true for a lot of us. Like
Yes.
they felt kind of dangerous, but they were real accessible because of his style. But like he had described, like, finding a pyramid in the sand. And have you heard this analogy where he's like, his writing style was finding this pyramid that was an inch or two tall in the desert, and he was just digging the sand away, and the pyramid would just get larger and larger, and he really didn't know when it was going to end because of the shape of the pyramid. And that always stuck with me whenever I think of a writer's process. I'm like, some people approach it that way, where they really don't know where, they just get absorbed in it. They know the story is there and they just dig for it. And I always think that's probably the most honest and like organic way to write.
Well, Stephen King is, he's just a genius. He's gone on record as saying that he's only ever plotted one of his novels. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Insomnia. I think the only plotted one, and the rest are mainly character driven that he writes off the cuff. He's writing that off the seat of his pants.
It's awesome,
isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's just genius that he can do that, and just uncover a pyramid like it's the most natural process in the world. But,
right, yeah.
Oh, sure. It's that easy, Stephen. Yeah.
It makes it sound so much more fun when the truth of writing is like it's such a labor. Like you have to have that work ethic to really make it happen. And for him, it does sound like he's just like, I brushed the sand away and there's my 800-page masterpiece.
Although, and I guess I'm questioning Robert, but in this piece with Max, Max Harding, like when I first started my first read through of the book, like when I was just reading it to get a grasp of what was happening, I didn't like Max until like later in the story. At first I was like, who is this guy? Like, so I don't know. Did you plot this out? I guess, did you answer that question already?
So my approach to plotting has changed a lot over the last few years.
Okay.
But I understood even at this time that you needed to have some level of character development there. So you need to take the character on a journey. So having him as a victim at the beginning, but also he's the one that's cheating on his wife as well.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more complicated than just being the victim. He's hurting someone else. So when he gets his comeuppance and then has to kind of find some peace with all of that, then that's quite an interesting journey to go on.
Yeah, I love too that you focus on character, and that when we get to talking to Paul about the process of creating this audio version of it, we just had this conversation recently on the podcast about how you can have a great story, and a lot of times in sci-fi that'll happen where a really great sci-fi author can make you care about a story, yet they can have these really thin characters because everything else is so clever. But 9 times out of 10, you got to go from the character out, and you really got to have somebody you can kind of sink your teeth into and either love or hate, or at least kind of relate to and get behind, to make a story really make it to that next level and make it really immersive and worth experiencing. So I'm curious, like, Paul, when you got this, like you were just saying, you didn't necessarily like the protagonist. Like, did you feel, as an actor, I know like doing an audiobook is like a kid in a candy store because you have this entire cast that you get to play everybody.
Which is brilliant as an actor. It's my, controlling nature, I guess. In some ways I was like, oh my gosh, I get to be every single character in this and have some control over what they say and what they do, which is really beautiful and fun. It's one of those things that it's unusual, I guess, for actors to be able to do that in a way, because, you know, on films and stuff, you work on a project and you get, you know, you get to be one character, one person.
Unless you're Eddie Murphy.
Unless you're Eddie Murphy
or Tyler Perry
character in the film. Yeah. And it's one of those, I don't know. I shouldn't say that I didn't love, I didn't like the main character of Max at first, and then he did grow on me. So
it's fun. Like in a way, is it an anti-hero kind of situation where you're willing to follow him on his journey, but you just think he's despicable?
I think that a little bit of that, yeah, absolutely. And it might have just been my own personal take on him at first. I was like, who is this guy, and why is he? I don't know. I came to love him later. So yeah, definitely anti-hero.
That kind of makes me think again about like just the noir genre, and like a lot of times that seems to be the way is these guys are kind of, you know, in some aspect of their life they're deeply flawed, and that's absolutely and that's out in front, right out of the gate.
Well, and I know that I thought noir too a lot when I was reading. You know, you're mentioning the atmosphere of the piece and stuff. When I was reading it, and actually the first, like for the audition piece, I was thinking, gosh, this is very noir, but not like noir, like, you know, there's not like references to, you know, I walked into the room and there was a dame waiting. You know?
In the grander sense.
It's more noir, like what I think of when I think of like the X-Files, where, you know, there is really, it's moody and atmospheric, and it pulls in all of those elements. Actually, X-Files would be a good reference point for that. And you know what actually got me interested in the piece initially was there was a reference to being compared to Torchwood, which I don't know if anybody's any of you do you know Torchwood, Freddy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our listenership actually, we have a lot of Doctor Who fans and Torchwood fans that listen to the show, so that's a good reference to use to compare this to. I think they'll get that.
Yeah. If they know Torchwood and the X-Files and Doctor Who, this would be something definitely that goes down those alleyways and stuff. And there's elements too that are exciting for myself. I know you were mentioning like Stephen King. There's a scene in the book, a chapter in the book. There's this presence of these scissors, and I will just leave it at that. It's very interesting what happens with them. So I would say there's definitely some horror elements kind of woven throughout too that are fun.
You mentioned the scissors, and I think that's actually a good segue to play the clip that you sent. Besides just the mention of scissors, is there a good setup for this particular clip that you'd like to give the listener?
Gosh, I'm trying to think here. This is the scene with Cindy. I don't know how to give too much of a setup without giving away too much. So maybe I'll just let it live as it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting scene, even taken out of context. So I think it gives a good sense of Robert's writing, and of your acting as well. So it kind of gives people a nice taste. So
unless Robert wants to say something about the scene, Robert, this is the clip where Cindy wakes up in the hospital.
Cindy realizing that she might not be who she thinks she is.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. That's a mysterious setup. Too. All right. Yeah. So here is that clip.
12. Cindy woke up. Daylight streamed in through the window and stung her eye. It took her a while to establish that she was lying in a hospital bed. She tried to sit upright, but it hurt to move. Her chest throbbed like she'd been punched. She was alone, though, in a private room. The needle, taped to the back of her hand, itched, and she followed the tubing with her eyes to a bag of fluid beside her bed. Where was everyone? Had she just been left here? Memories of that morning's fight with Max were fuzzy and indistinct, like they didn't quite belong to her. Someone had been thoughtful enough to leave the call button draped over her arm. She thumbed it now, and soon heard footsteps approaching from outside. A young nurse entered. She was short and squat, and as she neared the bed, Cindy caught a whiff of a flowery perfume, The nurse's badge read Sadie Jones in faded lettering, and when she spoke, it was with a faint Liverpudlian accent. "How you doing, love?" "Thirsty," Cindy croaked through cracked lips. Nurse Jones poured a glass of water and passed it to Cindy, who gulped it greedily. "Small sips." Cindy slowed, but downed the glass without taking her eyes off Nurse Jones, who tutted before taking the empty glass away. "You'll make yourself sick." "I was thirsty." "Doesn't matter. You should listen to us. We want to make you better." "Am I okay? What's happened?" Nurse Jones raised an unshapely eyebrow. "You're doing well, love. You were stabbed with a pair of scissors. You lost a lot of blood. Do you remember?" She remembered the point of the scissors breaking a hole in her flesh, then the icy warmth of the blade sliding inside her. "I could have died." "You don't know how lucky you've been," Nurse Jones said. Cindy drew her eyebrows together in a frown. "Lucky? How?" "The scissors went slap-bang into the main chamber of your heart. You should have been dead before the ambulance arrived." Cindy's hand instinctively went to her chest. Nurse Jones nodded. "The surgeon's pleased. He doesn't know quite how you managed to survive, but you did. Perhaps you've got yourself a guardian angel looking out for you." Cindy didn't know what to make of the situation. She should be dead. How are you meant to react when someone tells you that? "When can I go home?" "You were only sent up from recovery a couple of hours ago. You've got some healing to do first." "I really do need to go. Please get my clothes." Cindy glared at the nurse. Nurse Jones glared back. The nurse adjusted Cindy's blankets, fussing over the corners and tucking the edges in tight.
So there you go. That's kind of a peek into the face stealer. So,
Yes.
So definitely, if somebody hears that clip and they're like, I want to hear The Face Stealer by Robert Scott Norton, as read by Paul Cram.
Yes, as read by Paul Cram.
where's the best place to get that book?
So I would say you could either go to Amazon and search for The Face Stealer, and that would have all of the formats, or you could go to Audible or iTunes and search for The Face Stealer, or you could go to robertscottnorton.com, and all the links to the stores are on there.
Fantastic. And Paul, do you want to share your contact info with anyone that's interested in checking out your work? Great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Same as Rob. You can check out my website at paulcramactor.com. And, from there you can launch into all of my social media and all that fun stuff if people are on Facebook and Twitter and things like that.
And there's great samples of Paul's work there too. He's more than a good voice. He's also a really great on-screen presence. And I think anybody would be lucky to have you involved in their project. So definitely consider Paul for anything you got going on out there, creatives, because he's awesome.
Absolutely.
I
I checked out your video clips and they're fantastic, Paul.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you doing this, and I'm looking forward to getting the whole story on The Face Stealer. I'm hoping it'll be one of my beach reads this summer, or I'll probably listen to you read it to me, Paul. So
excellent. Late at night, let me read to you, Freddy.
Fantastic. All right, thanks,
Freddy.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Freddy.
Take care.